feel like in other states of consciousness, what we look at can feel like what we're doing, because perception is action and it's choiceless awareness. So what we're aware of is kind of what we're doing. And what happens for people in cardiac arrest is largely determined on the people around them. So if somebody goes into cardiac arrest and people just think they're doing a performance to play dead, then nobody's going to do anything. But if they realize that a person is having a problem, they'll call for help. I feel like people who go into map consciousness go into non-duality arrest or ego arrest. All of a sudden, the ego is arrested. And what happens to the person, because they're sort of helpless without the ego as the actor, it largely depends on people around them. And people in duality try to bring the person back to duality. And flow is choiceless awareness. When one is falling in gravity, there's no time to make a choice based on thought. So a different sense takes over the body falling in gravity. And I feel like map consciousness is almost like the ego falling in consciousness. There's no time for it to act. And so the mind takes over. I feel like the force of consciousness or the field of consciousness could be like the field of gravity. Just like if we're taking a step down a mountain, we'll be animated in a certain way because of gravity. We just lift our leg and we fall and step in gravity. So if we're in the consciousness of love, in that field of consciousness, and we take a step, we'll be animated as love with different gestures than if we take a step in the field of consciousness of hate. So the field of consciousness helps to animate us just like the field of gravity would. I feel like the brain is starving for the sounds of seeing. Like when we see something beautiful and we go, "Ah." That's a sound of actually seeing something. But usually we're lost in the sounds of our own personal conflicts. And the me is conflict. The me is programmed to be in conflict just by virtue of separating itself from that which it's not separate from life, from the field of life. And the flow state is the algorithm of life. And they sell it back to us after it's been written over by the programs of education. We probably sit in class over 10,000 hours, and it says it takes 10,000 hours to be really expert skilled at something. Well, we become expert skilled at what it is they're educating us to see and how we're educated to be in the world, which is over the algorithm of life. So after we're thoroughly programmed, then all these concepts like spirituality and actualization and flow and meditation are all sold to us. And there's the energy of living and life, and the energy of thought wastes energy from the energy of life. And so thought is a limiter. I wonder if the map consciousness muscle is getting used to carrying complexity. In a way, thought limits the complexity of life. It limits it down just to the little me, and then one doesn't really consider things beyond that limited sphere. But when one starts to really perceive and have insight, then that has to be something outside the limited me self. Map consciousness is a complexity algorithm, and it's seeing complexity, seeing all the complexity that's out there, and seeing the beauty of it in the place of all of it. And if we see the beauty in the place of all of it, we don't divide it up into little bits for our own use to the point where the complexity is going to be destroyed, because our eyes can still see that the complexity is being destroyed. And when the human brain starts to get to a point where it's destroyed too much complexity, then nature, which we're a part of, starts to destroy the complexity of the human brain. And it's almost like we're devolving. We're devolving by lack of our own vision and insight. We need to see the complexity and the celebration of it. I want to restore the vision of labeled people. Visionaries. I feel like we become allergic to thought. We become allergic to me. And maybe that's why the volume gets turned up on voices, is that it's an attack of the me on the me, but really there is no me there. But it's just becoming allergic to the me. Usually we have a me and it seems like this healthy me, but it's almost like this inflammatory me reaction that happens. Inflammatory sound, it's becoming inflamed. The universe is having an autoimmune reaction to thought, to the me, to the ego. And it can send out any vibes that our brain will pick up on, any programs. I feel like autistic brains might be inflamed by thought. So they're going along just fine, and once they hit that age where they're supposed to absorb thoughts and words and language, their brain is allergic to them. The new currency is perception, action, and beauty. I wonder if dopamine is the genetic switch, the me. Something's going wrong with the dopamine system. And dopamine is related to language, to I want. But in a way, if the brain is becoming allergic to this idea of an I, of a me, of a separate entity, I wonder if there was a different way for some of these children to be raised, instead of in thought, but in just a field of love, unconditional love and openness and space. And that which sees through our eyes in the background, no matter what we're projecting in the foreground, is beauty itself. And I feel like the me is cis consciousness. It's a contraction of consciousness. It contracts consciousness like muscles contract. It contracts the brain cells. I feel like the me as dopamine contracts the brain cells of the whole brain and just sends the energy through the prefrontal cortex at the expense of the whole brain, which is related to sensing things holistically. It just senses things based on the me. And the me, who we think we are, is our story, and it has nothing to do with reality. It prevents us from creating. We need perception in order to create. And it's static sound that prevents us from moving with life as life. It's like each of our thoughts is a program that moves us in a certain way according to that program. So we have very limited movements, just like some of the first robots might be like. And life is a different harmony that produces different sound that might sound the same, but they're coming from a different energy. And our nervous system is molting holograms. And I'm wondering if we can only last in map consciousness for a certain amount of time. Number of days, number of weeks, number of months. Just like somebody on LSD. They take it and then they can't take any more for a few days. It won't have any effect. So in a way, once the higher states of map consciousness wear off, there's this time period before the brain can produce those chemicals again to go into those other states of consciousness. So again, it's just a different biorhythm. It's a biorhythm of consciousness. It comes in and it takes us over and it animates us, then it goes away and we're back to ego thought consciousness. And each time we go there, we get a little bit more acclimated to be animated by that. And I wonder if we project holograms from our nervous system. And I feel like the thought image algorithm is holographic. And I wonder if that's why it seems like the brain works on holographic principles. But I wonder if it really does. Or if it's just that the brain is so active in meeting reality and the mind with holograms, with images and sounds already in the brain, that it seems like the brain works on holographic principles. But that could actually be the interference in the brain. It could be that the me, which is an illusion, works on holographic principles, but a clear brain might actually work on principles other than the hologram. The holograms are how we've been programmed to react, and it's the brain reacting instead of creating. So it's almost like the holograms and the images and sounds that are noise in our brain bouncing around are the me, are the program of the me, recordings. So the holographic principles in the brain are the recording principles. So if we're not projecting images and sounds, if our brain is clear, then we're not recording anything. And it will use the holographic principles where necessary in order to plan something, or if one needs to think of a memory for something, but it won't take over. So I think this holographic principle thing could be very small compared to something else that's happening. And it could be that creating is quantum. So the hologram is in the way of the quantum. And we live in our holograms. And it's dirty light, just like there's dirty electricity. It's dirty light, and the light coming in is made dirty by past holograms. So there's a premature collapsing of the wave function by the old hologram. And I wonder if there's an art to forgetting. Our whole life is based on remembering, but we don't actually question the remembering. I think it's the most important thing to be able to forget. Because the remembering is all those images that meet reality and transform it into something that it's not. Reality is not my image of reality. I feel like psychosis is dying to everything that one has psychologically gathered, and feeling like the brain might actually die, and being faced with that. I wonder if it could be done daily as opposed to it accumulating and then needing this psychosis as the emptying process. The emptying of the me, it feels like the me is going to die. Can we get good at dying inwardly? And I feel like psychosis is falling in consciousness, whereas mania is levity. And I don't see any problems with it. I feel like mania and psychosis are solutions for how we've been conditioned. And the conditioning is the problem. So how can we support people to go beyond conditioning? How do we support people in that transformation and not say, why aren't you who you were yesterday? And it seems like as we move the infinity that we all share. So when I move my body, it's moving in space, and it's actually changing the space and the relationship of other things to my body. So in a way, I've moved the other things in relationship to my body as well. So we're all moving that infinity that we all share. And can we speak infinitely from infinity? As we move the infinity, can we be in touch with that and speak as that? instead of speaking as 1,000 yesterdays. And when one gets in touch with that beauty, the game of society doesn't seem that real compared with the play of beauty. And I wrote this blurb. I don't like reading stuff, but I'm also lazy. Look for that beauty which is beyond programs. Beauty can't be programmed, as beauty just is. When you see it, without naming it, you are beyond the word, in the flow of beauty. It's choiceless awareness, as it is infinite, so when one is seeing as beauty, all is beauty, and there is no need to have an entity, a chooser to pick something. There are no things that a separate entity chooses. Anything we choose is not actually there. It's just a program. Beauty can't be programmed. We all have that beauty which can't be programmed. Mania and psychosis is an allergic reaction to the non-beauty of thought and programs. It's okay to die into this beauty. Thought dies into beauty. Emptiness. Don't be afraid to be empty. Don't be afraid of this emptying of the content of consciousness. It's like pulling a plug on a drain and experiencing the whirlpool of thought drain through. The beauty is a magnet to unprocessed energies of the all. Since the beauty is of the all, the thought of all time also comes through. Don't be disturbed. It's like equilibrating one's ears during flight. Mania and psychosis is equilibrating thought for the all. And then I was thinking that beauty is color and shape. And so words are really talking about the movement of light as color and shape. And sometimes I'm aware that colors have gotten a lot brighter. And I feel this is a sign of increased perception because there's more distinction to the colors, and there's more beauty to the colors, and there's more information, and the colors are brighter, so one is more inclined to look more closely and at length at these beautiful things. So there's more information in that. So the intensity is to increase the subtle distinctions to see the language of beauty. And beauty is a different resonance than thought. And can we walk with wisdom in the realm of beauty and in the realm of thought programs? And I think the thought programs become more like buzzing bees flying by. If we react thinking we're going to get stung, we're more likely to get stung. And I was noticing I feel strong in the field of beauty. Beauty makes my nervous system feel strong. And interestingly enough, the night I had that trouble sleeping because it felt like consciousness was leaving my body, I was saying I was having some weird, scary premonitions, but I wasn't scared. But then that night, stuff went down in consciousness. So that's even more of a subtle thing, is that if I have a perception that seems like a prophecy or something scary, it's almost like now I don't even feel the fear of that. It's not fearful, but then I still see that it's still a sign that my brain has gone too far in a way and needs to scale back. So I could see that as take something to calm my brain down, even if my brain feels calm, but I did see something that might be seen as upsetting. I have no idea.